Hi, Dr. Dave Webster. This is my ongoing video series of the travesty of patient access to PET-CT, the world standard of imaging management for 20 or so years now, in our liberal so-called evidence-based patients first healthcare system. And this next video is beginning to explore, but with all these safeguards present in Ontario, how possibly could this have happened? So, this is Ontario, this is our home, and surely in these troubled times in the world we live in currently, there could be no better example, right, of a free, open, transparent, and accountable democracy. We've got Niagara Falls, you've got the kids out having the nice sights in the summer, and of course, the Big Nickel from Sudbury, where I come from. Or is it? Let's explore that. But of course it must be. We have all these checks and balances and safeguards and watchdogs. Nothing bad could happen here, right? We have the Ombudsman, watchdog especially, and in Ontario we actually have a patient ombudsman to make sure nothing bad happens to patients especially. Now, the Attorney General's office I've dealt with as well, and of course we have the College of Physicians and Surgeons. They're there to make sure that you're not exposed to bad doctors, right? And of course, how could I forget, we have these professional journalists and news anchors, our most trusted sources of news and information, and of course they are there to make sure that politicians are kept accountable, right? So let's look at the Ombudsman's website here. Let's just examine in detail what they say their mandate is. The Ontario Ombudsman promotes fairness, accountability, and transparency in the public sector by resolving and investigating public complaints as well as addressing systemic issues. Now, it sounds like exactly the perfect safeguard to make sure our politicians, their bureaucrats and experts don't abuse the citizens of Ontario. Especially some of our sickest and most distressed patients, right? So, as we go through these series of videos, what I want you to consider is the Ombudsman really, are they our watchdogs, or are they the government's lapdogs? And so I'm not going to, you can make your own mind up based on the facts that I will give you over these next few videos. So the first ombudsman I dealt with was Michelle Amaral. I was back, I believe, in 2004, 2005, and these are the issues I brought to her attention. I was president of the Ontario Association of Nuclear Medicine, and my colleagues and I had met professionally, quietly, and privately behind the scenes with the Ministry of Health officials and treating with respect, and we'd submitted questions and concerns following these meetings. And I can tell you, without exception, they refused to mostly acknowledge they met with us, but even if they did respond, they did, without exception, they refused to answer a single question of any relevance. Then in 2004, Dr. Dreger bypassed the chair of the PET Steering Committee, that Dr. Bill Evans at the time, and he wrote directly to Mr. Smitherman, the Minister of Health, and I'll have a lot more to say about that letter in another video. But what the point I want to make now is that the Minister of Health is in fact required by law to either have someone himself or someone on his staff respond and acknowledge, first of all, they received this and then respond to it. And as you will see, Mr. Smitherman not only refused to respond to Dr. Dreger, but other times as well. So, under Michelle Amaral's direction, I wrote several letters to people who weren't getting back to my colleagues and I, but the most important one was that I then wrote under her instruction directly to Mr. Smitherman, and I asked him, why didn't he, as required by law, respond to Dr. Dreger? And so I resubmitted the questions and raised the issues that Dr. Dreger had, and I added a couple more points myself. Now, on this occasion, Mr. Smitherman actually did respond, but not a single issue of substance was answered or dealt with in his response. So, what was the response of our watchdog, Ms. Michelle Amaral? And in her final report, by the way, she concluded that the Ministry of Health officials and Mr. Smitherman had adequately addressed all the concerns and answered the questions raised by my colleagues and me. So my response was, well, what I did was I sent the letter back that I received from Mr. Smitherman along with the one I sent to him and just pointed out the obvious, that there were no answers to any questions or issues in this particular one. But then I said this, I said, it's politically incorrect. I said, wait a minute, you're convinced that this is the case, so you surely must have the answers in your possession. Would you mind sharing those answers and the concerns that have been addressed with us, my colleagues and I? And her response? Because of privacy issues, I cannot share this information with you or your colleagues. But wait, Don't we live in this open, transparent, and accountable democracy where publicly elected officials are expected to respond to questions regarding serious matters of public policy affecting patients? I mean, especially when it's coming from the doctors, and especially when it comes from the most senior member of Mr. Smitherman's own Cancer Care Ontario Committee, the PET Steering Committee. Oh, and one more detail. The Minister of Health, by provincial law, is compelled to either have himself or someone on his staff acknowledge the receipt and of these letters and respond to these correspondence in some fashion. So, what about this transparency in the public sector? Now, again, are we dealing with watchdogs or lapdogs? You decide. So, my response, I have to say, I was quite devastated. I was, at that point, still naive enough to believe that the Ombudsman / Watchdog of Ontario, I mean, surely if anybody was above the political influence, I mean, that would be them, right? I mean, given my uniform experience with the kind of people that become politicians, I mean, it was kind of expected that this was the way they behave. And I'm sad to say, no government has ever had or ever will have trouble finding experts, be they lawyers, engineers, or doctors, to do or say whatever is necessary to carry out the agendas of their political masters. And if you think that this couldn't possibly happen in Canada, that doctors would never do bad things to patients, I want you to think again. I mean, this is a report back from 1940 to 1980. In Human Experiment, Ontario miners say they paid a devastating price. Something slightly more recently, doctors tortured patients. At Ontario Mental Health Centre, judge rules. Yeah, but 1983 is still a long way away, isn't it, right? Not for me personally, but it might be for some. But wait a minute. Here is May 2005. I've referred to this before. This is the minutes of the annual general meeting of the Canadian Association of Nuclear Medicine. And these are what I was referring to in the past. The CSNM recognizes that the scientific evidence available to the medical community is such that these trials cannot be regarded as ethical. And this is where they demanded that there be an external review by experts in ethics and healthcare policy, which has been ignored to this day. So, what really stopped me dead in my tracks, however, was the realization that the Ombudsman's office was literally a lie and a puppet of the government. I really was, I have to say, devastated to finally come to the realization of just how deep and how rotten the system really was. And as you'll see, this is just the beginning. It actually gets a lot worse. So what I did was, for a year or so, I just really ended my advocacy for PET. I mean, I was just burned out. I just thought, this is too much for me to handle. But I'm a glass half full person and a fighter, and especially when it comes to patients. So my next video is entitled My Second Kick at the Can with the Ombudsman's Office, this time with Mr. Andre Morin. So thanks. We got to make this an election issue. It's only going to change if we do it, and we need to. So thanks, and I look forward to your support, and thanks again.